And functions. So what's a function? Music to my ears. Okay. Getting better. I've only been practicing for 2.5 weeks now. So we talked about towards the end of last week about domain and range. Who remembers what domain and range are?
Domain is the list of x's, and range is the y.
That's correct. Domain is the list of all possible x's. Range is the list of all possible y's. So I'm going to skip 1 through 3. I think that you can do domain and range on 1 through 3. I'm going to do 4 with you guys. So when you look at 4, make sure everybody's doing 4 with me. Don't be working on other stuff. You see how you've got 4 points on your graph. So if it asks me to find the domain of this relation, I would look for what all x's does the graph take on. Now remember, when you list domain and range, you must list them in order from least to greatest. Every time. Least to greatest.
So it'd be -4.
So when I look at my domain here, the domain talks about the list of possible x's. X's go on the x-axis. So I would start on the far left side. And I would say, where's the first x that I encounter? There's a point at -4. So the smallest member of my domain is -4. As I keep going, what's the next smallest member of my domain? -1. The next smallest member of my domain? 2. And 3. That'll be my domain. Notice how we list the domain inside braces, brackets, brace. I always get it backwards.
Are you going to count it wrong if we didn't do at least a grace on the worksheet?
No, I'm going to be nice on the worksheet because I'm kind-hearted, gentle spirit. But from now on, you need to know domain is always least to greatest. And range. So when I look at the range is the list of possible y's. So how do you think we're going to list the range? I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to work my way up from least to greatest. So what's the smallest y value that I encounter? -2. There's a y value at -2. Keep working my way up. The next smallest y value is 1. The next smallest is 4. And 5. Another thing I want to mention on these. When you list the domain and range, you should never list a number more than once.
Yes, you told me that.
Never list a number more than once. So if you have an x that occurs twice, only list it 1 time. If you have a y that occurs 4 times, only list it 1 time. And I did a bad job introducing it. What was 1 through 6? If you notice at the top, it says these are the discrete functions. Remember yesterday we talked about discrete meant there were spaces. You had unique values and you couldn't put numbers between them. That's what's happening here. On this whole page, they're all discrete functions. All right, if you'll flip over to the back. Because it has repeated domains, and I'm going to make sure you didn't write them twice.
Oh, I did.
The domain should be -5, -3, 0, and 2. And the range should be -5, -3, 0, and 6. Because again, remember, we're listening in order from least to greatest, and we're not doing any repeats. So this should be 5. Now, my question is, what questions do you guys have? I see a bunch of people are just looking up at the board and copying down what I did, which means you didn't do it, which means you must have a question.
Okay, so I thought that we had to do number 8 like we did number 7. So that's the reason why, that's how I got
You do. We're not on 8 yet.
Oh,
It's 5.
She's like, oh,
What number is that?
I need to erase that then.
This is 5.
I got
So your 8 might have been right. We'll look at 8 in just a second. Any questions on 5? Okay, I'm going to do 7 and 9 with you guys. 7 and 9. Okay, so when I look at 7, this time I can't just list the x's. I can't do this. What's the smallest x value the graph takes on?
negative
-2. What's the next smallest?
2.
-1, but what about -1.5? And what about -1.8? And -1.9? -1.99? -1.999? You get the deal? You can't list them all because there's an infinite number of x's. That's what makes it continuous. So what we do is we put it on a scale. What are the x's between? So the smallest x value starts at -2. And then the x values continue all the way up until, where do the x values stop?
4.
At 4, the graph stops. So the highest x value that my graph takes on is 4. Does it go on every point between -2 and 4? Does it? Let me say that again. I did a bad job. Does it include every x between -2 and 4? Yes. There's no x's that we skip over, that we miss. It includes every x between -2 and 4. So here's how we say that. The domain. All right, and this is kind of the formal way to write it. It's a little fancy. The domain is all x's. Then you put a line. That line means such that. The domain is all x's such that. And we want to say it's from -2 to 4. And here's how we say that. X must be between -2 and 4. So the way we would read that, -2 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 4. I think this is very confusing to read it this way. I'm going to let you copy it down so you can listen to me.
What is that?
That's domain notation.
Yeah, is it -2 and then what?
Less than or equal to.
It's,
That makes sense. But it's just.
Well, I'm fixing to tell you how I make sense of it when everybody's listening. In my head, if I read it as -2 is less than or equal to x, that's less than or equal to 4, I really make no sense of that. Like, it means nothing to me. But if you go to the x, read your inequality in both directions from the x. If I start here and read to the left, what does that say? X is greater than or equal to -2. My x's are bigger than or equal to -2. I agree. And my x is also less than or equal to 4. So it has to be less than 4, greater than -2. So it's all the x's between there. Okay? That's why you notice when I wrote it down, I said x is between -2 and 4. Because that's where I go to, in the middle. And I read the inequality in both directions. Okay?
Sure.
This is called domain notation. Another way we're going to also talk about it is called interval notation.
That'd be. So you do the same thing for range.
Yeah.
Why so many
Like
big
different
words in
axes.
this? There's simpler words to use than that.
Well, sorry.
Doesn't make sense.
Interval notation. As you take Algebra 2 and pre-cal, you're going to be talking about domain and range a lot, especially pre-cal. I know that because that's what I teach. And if you ever take Math 112 at the college, you're going to have to know domain and range. And if you take it at Northeast, they use interval notation. They don't write it like this. They write it in a different way, and that's what I'm going to show you now.
The simpler way?
It's a little bit less to write, but it means the exact same thing. Interval notation, if I want to say x is between -2 and 4, I put -2 and 4, and I put braces around them. Brackets. Brackets, braces. I don't know. The ones that look like staples. I can get it backwards. I'm telling you. I think this is a bracket. I think this is a brace.
That's a bracket, yeah.
But whatever I say, I'm probably wrong because I do it backwards all the time. Because I put these brackets, that means -2 is included and 4 is included. Okay? So this was the domain for number 7.
That's so much simpler.
Why wouldn't we just do that?
Because everything you're doing in this class shows it like this. So you've got to know what it means to see it like this.
Don't you try to put it like.
I don't understand why they made it hard.
Both.
They did.
Write them both. Get used to both notations.
I'm already kind of used to the first one.
Like when I took upper level math, this is the way we had to write everything. But in 112, they write it like this. If you take it at
Are
Northeast.
the signs ever going to change like the less than greater than?
Yes. Oh, no. Like here,
Yeah.
no, it's always going to be number less than x less than number. That's the way it always looks. But they don't always have an equal to. And that's what I'm fixing to show you now. Okay? I'm going to skip range for a second. I'll come back and do range in just a minute. Let's do 9's domain. So when you look, what's the lowest x value the graph takes on?
-2.
-2. What is the highest x value the graph takes on?
4.
4. Does it go and visit every x between -2 and 4?
Yes.
It does. So here we would say the domain is, let's do it the fancy way, x such that x is between -2 and 4. Now when you look at that, does the graph actually touch -2?
No.
It does. You see there's a filled in circle at -2.
Oh, yeah.
Does the graph actually touch 4?
Yes.
No. If you look, 4 is an open circle.
Oh.
You see that where it's not filled in? You see the difference? -2 is filled in, 4 is not filled in. So here's what we do. We would say x can be greater than or equal to -2. Because -2 is included. You follow?
So whenever the circle's not filled, it's not going to be the.
This means we go all the way up to 2, but we don't actually include 2. That's what an open circle means. So here, x must be less than 4. It can be 3.99999.
It's not. It's anything under 4.
X has to be less than 4. And x must be greater than or equal to -2. Everything between here, including this point, but not that one.
On a graph, what does just an open circle mean?
It means we go all the way up to that point, but we don't include that point. Because, like, you can't tell me how close you can get to 4. Like, what's the next number right before 4? You can't name it.
You'd be infinite.
Whatever you name, I can name one closer.
Yeah.
And whatever I name, you could name one closer. So I can't tell you what it is.
It's just infinite.
There's an infinite amount of numbers between every number. It's just, let's don't get into that. The point is, we go all the way up to 4, but we don't include 4. Here's interval notation. So here, what's the lowest x value the graph takes on? -2. Does it include -2? Yes. So we put a bracket. It goes all the way up to 4. Do we include 4? No. 4 is not included. So you don't put a bracket, you put a parenthesis. Parentheses is a way to show you that it's not equal to. We go all the way up to 4, but we don't include 4. Yeah. Okay? Interval notation.
Why couldn't it be equal to 4?
Because there's an open circle at the x value that's 4. That means we don't include 4. We go all the way up to 4, but we don't include it because of the open circle. We good with that? Do I need to show you the range, or can we?
I think I can do the range.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll do range. I'll do it a little bit quicker. Let's go back to 7.
You have to do it both ways on that one, too.
Yep. When I'm talking about the range, I'm not going to be talking about x's. What am I going to talk about instead? Y's. So I would say it's all y's such that y must be between. What's the lowest y value the graph takes on?
-0.
Negative 0.
The lowest y value is here. That y value is -3. What's the highest y value the graph takes on? 4. Does it include every y between -3 and 4? Yes, it visits every y at least once. Sometimes it visits them twice. So we would say y must be between -3 and 4. And because those points are included, right, there's not an open circle, that means we use less than or equal to. How could I write that in interval notation? It would be bracket, -3, 4, bracket. I think you got it from there.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you go. You try the rest of them. I'm going to give you about, I don't know, 8 minutes. Then we'll go over it. Okay, let's do range on 9. Because I left you with range on 9. This should be all y's such that, what are my y's between? -3 and 3. Are both of those included? One of them is. Which one is? -3 is included because it's a filled-in dot. But the highest y value is 3, but it's at an open dot. So 3 should not be included. So what does that look like in interval notation?
Don't do 10 yet. I need to do
-3, comma 3. The 3 would have a parenthesis. Parenthesis means it's not included. Right, remember here we had 4 that was not included. So you put a parenthesis for an open circle.
Okay, that's right. Okay.
Open circle's a parenthesis.
I was just one off in a second.
Questions. If you have questions, you're going to have to ask because I don't really know. I don't know how to teach this other than to tell you.
So we would never, on like the bracket, or like fancy quotation marks or whatever, we would never put just a normal thing, just parentheses right there. If it was like, if it wasn't mentioned. Only on like interval notation. Only on.
no, we have food. It's the same pencil.
The way it's shown in the fancy is with the equal to sign. Like you less than equal to or just less than. That's how it shows up there.
That's like equivalent to just parentheses or just bracket.
Okay, first thing we're looking for is the domain. What's the lowest x value the graph takes on? -2.
That's a 3.
Does it include -2? Yes. What's the highest x value it takes on? 7. Does it include 7? Yes. Does it visit every x between -2 and 7? So we could say the domain is from -2 to 7. Both in brackets.
Why do you underline something?
The less than? When you have a line underneath it, this means it says less than or equal to. So x can be bigger than or equal to -2. So you go all the way to -2. It doesn't have to be bigger than it. It can actually be -2 as well. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, what about the range? What's the lowest y value the graph takes on? -3. Does it include -3? It does. What's the highest y value the graph takes on? Does it include 6? Yes, it does. So in interval notation, we could say it's from -3 to 6, both in brackets. I'm telling you, I can't remember. I say it backwards all the time.
Well, I get what you're saying, so you don't know.
10,
we're looking at the domain.
Excuse me, students and teachers, the football game formerly scheduled for Friday night at Piedmont has been moved till tomorrow night at Piedmont. The tickets are $8 cash at the gate. No fan, no go fan will be sold. So if you go to the football game at Piedmont
No fans can
tomorrow
go.
night, $8 at the gate.
Who's the party going? No fans.
Okay, when I look at this graph, domain, what's the lowest x value the graph takes on? Right here's where it starts, and that's an x value of 0. So the lowest x value is 0. So we could say the domain is x such that x must be bigger than or equal to 0. Now what's the highest x value the graph takes on?
4. But it's infinity.
4, but it keeps going, and there's an arrow. The arrow means it's going to continue in this direction without end. So the highest x value the graph takes on is infinity. Now the question is, does it get all the way to infinity?
No.
No. You can't reach infinity because infinity is not a number. It's a concept.
Okay, so I wrote mine.
So infinity is never included. It's never an equal to.
Okay, so why put 4 on there? Because there's a dot for 4.
Yeah, that's mount. I put like 4 over infinity.
There is an x at 4. There's a dot there, but does the graph stop there?
No, so we don't put the 4. So I have it wrong.
Because what is a line? A line is a collection of points. So you don't have to write all these other points. So you don't have to pick that point. You just need to tell me where it ends.
Well, okay, now I feel dumb.
No, don't feel dumb.
I put like different. I put like 4 over infinity because that point 4 was like dotted, and then you keep on going for infinity over that. So
And there's a fancy way you could write that.
we ain't gonna-
But does it include 4? Does it include every number after 4? Every number before 4? Then don't stop at 4. Because there's no gap. Like if there was a gap somewhere, then you have to stop and start again. But we're not getting to that yet. We're being nice. Okay. If I have to write that in interval notation, 0 is included. It's in a bracket. Infinity is not included. It's in a parenthesis. How do I know to write positive infinity and not negative infinity? Because it's going to the right. I just got done grading Math 112 test. Do you know how many people put negative infinity at the end? There's no way you can go to negative infinity. I don't know what they're thinking. But it happens.
That thing that goes so far this way, it loops around.
You can, but negative infinity's always got to be the first number. Because it's always the lowest possible value. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Okay, let me get there. Look at the range. What's the lowest y value the graph takes on here? 0. What's the highest y value the graph takes on?
We don't know.
So here's 2. Does it go above 2? It does. So is it growing?
Yeah.
It's growing very slowly, but it's growing.
So it's like,
And it will grow forever.
We didn't do well.
That's what I'm working on. So the range is all y's starting at 0 and going to
so it's the same thing, but just with Y.
infinity. Stop. Please stop. I mean, can y'all not listen to me teach? Please. I mean, I'll be interactive. I try to be engaging. But if y'all talk while I'm trying to teach, I'm going to get real mad real fast. Okay, so we're from 0 to infinity on the range as well. So it looks the same. Okay, when we look at the next one, 11. Start with the domain. So domain's the x. So what's the lowest x the graph takes on? Well, I see it goes to -4, but there's an arrow, which means it continues doing this for forever. So the lowest x value is negative infinity. I can't go far enough left to get there. So the lowest x value is negative infinity. So we'll start there. The domain is all x's such that x must be bigger than negative infinity.
Is it not -3?
No. Because it doesn't have a.
What is -3? Where? Show me why you mean -3. Come draw it. I know exactly what you're fixing to say. That's good. We're good. We're good. We're good. I know it is. You're not the only one confused. I promise. I appreciate you speaking up.
Like, it's so like, look, right here you got a dot.
Yeah, I
Because you
agree.
got a dot here and here.
Yeah.
And then it goes to infinity.
What is -3?
This thingy, whatever that is. It's a Y.
Bruh. Brain.
When I'm talking about domain, I'm only looking at the x's.
I thought.
So that's why you see. I mean, and you're not gonna be the only one that does that. Look, that's why I draw it like this, and you see me move my hand because that's all I care about. I don't care about up or down. All I care about with the domain is left or right, like a timeline.
That's
Bozo.
And so the lowest x value, we don't ever get there. It keeps going left. So it's negative infinity.
so it's infinity for both sides.
What's the highest x value the graph takes on? Positive infinity, because we're going to the right forever. Does it touch every x between negative infinity and positive infinity? Yeah, there's no gap. There's no spaces. It's going to go and touch every x between them. So we could say that the domain is all x's, such that x is bigger than negative infinity and less than positive infinity. Now, this notation you really wouldn't see. All right? The way you would write this is you would say x is a real number. Because the domain is all real numbers. The domain is everything. Because every x is touched. This is what you would see written. You wouldn't see a negative infinity to positive infinity.
So, unlike a test, we would put the bottom one.
I'm good with either. I'm not going to count any of them wrong. I just want you to be familiar with all of them. Because you never know on an ACT, on a test, in somebody else's class, I don't know how they're going to write it. So I'm going to show you everything. That way you're not like, I've never seen that. Okay. Cause.
Why do the range right to number 11?
Now how could we do that in interval notation? What's the lowest x value? Negative infinity. What's the highest x value? positive infinity. Both are in parentheses. You will see that. Interval notation, you'll see it like this. And you'll see it like this.
I done the Y right. I just done the.
And that's okay. People get them backwards. And the thing that y'all are going to do, I guess we're going to do it tomorrow, which is fine with me because I really want us to learn this because I really think it's important. It does what?
That makes me mad.
No, not mad. Get glad. Okay. Look at the range. What's the lowest Y value the graph takes on? -3. Does it go below -3 on the y-axis? No. So the lowest Y value is -3. So my range is Y such that Y must be bigger than or equal to -3. Now what's the highest Y value the graph takes on? Infinity. It goes up forever, never stopping. So it must be less than infinity. In interval notation, I could write this as -3 to infinity. -3 has a bracket, infinity a parenthesis.
I was confused because I thought it was just.
Okay, look, I got that part right.
Will there ever be a greater than besides the less than?
Right here? No. It always goes this order.
That was a lot.
I'll look at 12. Looking at the domain. What's the lowest x value the graph takes on?
-5.
It's right here.
-5.
And that's at -5. So my lowest x value is -5. Is -5 included?
It looks like -4 to me.
You count them over. Here's 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And -5 is included. What's the highest x value the graph takes on?
6, but
6. But 6 is not included because it's an open circle. So it goes all the way up to 6, but not including 6.
I keep forgetting to do that notation part, the other part.
Let's look at the range. What's the lowest Y value the graph takes on?
Why is it open and closed? Like what? The circles. Why are they open and closed?
Because sometimes you need to include it and sometimes you don't need to include it.
What does that mean?
Do you remember doing x is greater than 2 and you had to graph this on a number line? And then what did you have to do? You had to go to the number 2. And what did you do at 2? You put an open circle because it wasn't included. And greater than means you shaded to the right. Because 2 is not greater than 2. That makes the statement false. 2 is not greater than 2. But all the way up to 2 works. So we put an open circle. But if I said greater than or equal to 2, is 2 bigger than or equal to 2? Yes, so we filled in the circle to show that it was included. It was part of the solution.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's the same thing follows here. If it's not included, we don't have an equal to sign. But if it is included, we do have an equal to sign. When I look at the range, what's the lowest Y value the graph takes on? Where's the lowest point?
That's like -6.
The lowest value is right here. Y'all agree? It's the lowest y value. And that is -1, 2, 3, 4, -6. Is -6 included? It is. It's filled in at -6. The line touches it. So it's included. Now what's the highest y value the graph takes on? It would be right here
That's included.
at 2. 2 is also included. So we could say it's between -6 up to 2.